Good afternoon and welcome back to the final session of today's teleconferencing in the area of marketing. We all as human beings are consumers. Right from our childhood till old age, you keep on buying different products, adapt, consume and keep repeatedly buying those products. And every marketer is also aware that how important is the consumer for him, because he manufactures a product or a good or a commodity not for his own consumption but for the consumers. So all your consumers are outside the four walls of the company, and one can only market his product outside the four walls of the organization. And in this regard, it is very important to know who is an Indian consumer, what are his traits, what are his expectations, what are his beliefs, and to address these issues and to give more insights into Indian consumer. Again, we have Dr. Preeti Rajpal Singh, who would talk about and discuss who is an Indian consumer and what are his traits and what importance the marketer should give to the consumer, because it is the consumer who buys his product and generates revenue to the company for development and growth. With these few words, over to Dr. Preeti Rajpal Singh.
Thank you. We are starting with the characteristics of the economy as we see it today vis-a-vis the consumer, and we will broadly dwell on about 7 trends that we are witnessing in the Indian consumer, who today rightly is called the new improved Indian consumer. What we need to see over here is that India has transformed from a needs-based market to a wants-based market. We all by now appreciate the difference between needs and wants. Earlier, the Indian consumer was needs-based. Today, his demand is wants-based. Now for this, we'll just go back a little. When India opened its economy to the global marketplace in the early 1990s, more than 15 years ago, we started talking of globalization, liberalization, opening up, etc. A lot of multinationals entered then. 15 to 17 years ago, a lot of multinationals entered the Indian market, and their dream was what? To catch on and to cash on the 200 million estimated middle class of the Indian market. But what they saw was low incomes, a resistance to change, and a conservative consumer. That was 17 years ago, 15 years ago. But what has happened today is that at that time the companies said that the Indian consumer is tough. It's difficult. We'll have to fight for our survival. But over the past 15 years, the Indian consumer has shown certain characteristics of development, of what they call improvement. And it is about 7 of these characteristics that we'll quickly try and discuss today. The first one is this increasing shift towards consumerism. Our attitudes as a consumer will remain complex. Why? Because we are still humans. The Indian consumer is also a human. He's not going to be a very simple a bundle of emotions to be offered to the MNCs who can say, okay, he's there and whatever we give him, he's going to lap up. That thing will remain. But the Indian consumer has shown a shift towards consumerism, over the past decade. One factor that has aided this is our growth. Our GDP growth has been strong and sustained, and we all boast of about an 8% average rate of growth in the past 3 years. So that has been one aiding factor. But yes, the Indians today, no negating the fact, constitute 1/5 of the world's citizens below 20. We have what we call a youthful population, and these are that generation that is going to be joining our ranks or are already joining our ranks. This youthful population is joining our ranks of the Indian consumer. So that is our first characteristic. The Indian consumer is increasingly young, enthusiastic, waiting to explore. So that is our first characteristic, because we have about 20% of the world's youth population. The second is, Indians, like the consumers world over, are getting more and more materialistic. Half of the Indian urban population had adopted a work hard and get rich policy by 1996, and about 7 years down the line, another 9% had joined that rank. So look at the concept of the urban Indian population. The urban Indian consumer doesn't mind working hard as long as he gets paid for it adequately, and because of that he will have that purchasing power, and it is this purchasing power that marketeers are looking to. So the urban population has decided that they're going to get rich, and even if it involves working hard, they want to work hard. And over here, let me share with you one finding of a survey that Gallup conducted. We had a Gallup poll of about 30 nations, in which it was discovered that the average work week of India, the Indian, is 50 hours, and that makes it amongst the top nations in the hard-working nations of the world. Now let me, just so that you can appreciate this 50, let me give you the figures of some other countries. While an average work week of an Indian was about 50 hours, the average US had 42 hours to its credit, while some of the major European countries, Germany and France, had less than 40 hours. 50 hours, 40 hours. We are 10 hours ahead of them in terms of our work, which means about an hour and a half more every day. Translate it at that. You and me work 1.5 hours more than an average European. So we want to be rewarded for that. And that is why we are saying that we have a materialistic nature that is showing up. If I'm admitting that yes, I want the money, but I'm also saying that I'm willing to work to get that money. So this is one finding that I wanted to share with you, which is a second very important trend that has developed and that the market is looking towards. All our manufacturers are looking towards the fact that yes, they are growing, and they are growing increasingly rich. The third factor that I want to share with you today is what I mentioned at the start. Consumerism is becoming a way of life. Today, Indians set aside money and show and express their desire to buy electronics and durables. You will also see this in the market. Look at the way your consumer durable companies and electronics companies have grown in the past decade. Past 5 years has been a major spurt. Your LGs and Samsungs, and now you have even the Hitachis and the Haiers offering their ACs in the Indian market. Now what is this? The Indian consumer has moved towards consumerism. And this is again a trend. That is an indicator in the market of things to come. So what we have to see is that the Indian consumer is looking towards life's pleasures, and we'll just come to this shortly, and is now increasingly living a life of the here and now pleasure. Our parents and grandparents set aside money for what? For a rainy day. They set aside money for their child's education. They saved all their life so that they could buy a home. And what is the younger generation doing today? They get a job, and the moment they get a job, they buy a car because it is financed. So I'll just come to this in a minute. So basically, consumerism in durables, consumerism in electronics, and also the other industry that has gained by this is travel and entertainment. Let's take travel. Today, increasingly, just open a newspaper on a particular day of the week, and there are at least 2 pages devoted to travel agencies, tour operators offering you travel packages. Not only from Kashmir or Kanyakumari or the south or Agra or Jaipur, now they are offering you exotic destinations of Egypt, Turkey, Switzerland. And one more thing, today you can take a travel package and pay for it in installments later. This is the here and now concept. The Indian consumer wants the life's pleasures here and now. They are increasingly moving towards that because they are demanding that. The suppliers are giving that. So we have reached that advancement in our travel industry.
I would like to interrupt, ma'am. Leave alone the 2 pages devoted for these. You also have a full channel on the television promoting tourism and travel or whatever. So
Yes.
That's the kind of...
And since he has mentioned that, you will also see now India as a tourist destination. Past 5 years, Incredible India. You've seen this promotional campaign of Incredible India, and in the past month it has got a boost again because now we are looking towards the Commonwealth Games and we are preparing ourselves for the Commonwealth Games.
More specifically, the health tourism is rampant in Kerala.
Health tourism, we have a major advantage today. Whether it's dentistry, whether it's cosmetic surgery, whether it's a bypass, we are promoting ourselves on that.
Yeah.
So basically, it is entertainment and tourism. Tourism, as the Indian consumer, what Vijay mentioned was people coming in. I am talking of the Indian consumer wanting to undertake tourism, a characteristic. You know, it's not that, you know, you save for 5 years and say, okay, now the family will go for a holiday. Now you go for a holiday and pay for the next 2 years. And you don't have to limit your choices to what LTC had to offer to you.
Yeah.
Now you have Singapore, Bangkok, Egypt, Turkey, whatever you want, you have the choice of your destination.
The outflow is gaining momentum.
Yes. Okay. Now let's look at the entertainment. Have you noticed the increase? First, the concept of multiplexes was foreign to India. We didn't understand what a multiplex was. Past 7 years, look at the growth in the multiplexes. Look at the growth in the theme parks in the past 12 years. Resorts. Now all this comes because the consumer wants it and he has the spending power and is willing to spend. You certainly have the concept of the Neemranas and you have this game park resort and that resort. Now basically this is because the Indian consumer's attitude to spending is changing. He wants to spend and he wants to spend for his leisure, comfort and entertainment. So when we spoke of consumerism, it was not only limited to physical goods like durables, air conditioners, home theatres, mobiles, etc. We are also talking of consumerism and the growth of the entertainment and the travel industry. And now let me bring to you just one more fact. I started by saying that we have a young population, 20%. But I am just making one addition over here. Let us not make the mistake of assuming that it is only this young or this youth that is spending. 15 to 55, all pervasive. We are seeing this expenditure on durables, entertainment and travel. It's not that this spending is restricted only to the youth population. And the second aspect of this is, it is pervading all age groups. And second, it is no more a metropolitan city formula. It is not that only the urban population or the A-class cities are going to be exposed to this. Given the opening up of our media and our access to all the cable television, etc., This trend is also now going into the smaller cities, the smaller towns, and to some extent even the rural area. So that is one trend: consumerism, electronics, durables, entertainment, travel, and not restricted to an age group and not restricted to larger cities. The next trend, okay, over here just let me share with you one more example. We say that the number of Indians who own or use mobiles has grown by about 1600%, and we also are proud of adding about 3 million subscribers a month. Now that's the kind of growth that we are talking of. Plasma TVs, LCDs, home theaters, high-end cars, designer jewelry, designer watches. These are ads that we see in regular magazines today. So this is something that the marketers are making the Indian consumer aware of. So this is the kind of consumerism and growth that I'm trying to.
I think you can also add housing, villas.
Oh yes, housing.
That's again very important. Yeah.
Okay. And one more thing over here. I spoke of the growth of national income, and I spoke of the growth in income, which was leading to this tendency to spend. One characteristic here is that a lot of our customers are entering some markets for the first time. I'm talking of, okay, here let me come back to an example of our BPO industry. 18 to 20-year-olds joining the BPO industry. Within the first 3 months, they acquire a car. This is the first time entrant in that industry. And first time entrant is a very, very big potential market for the marketing people. The marketers can encash on this, because the others are going to be, for durable especially, are going to be repeat purchases, and they will come after a lag. This first time entrant in the market is that potential, this large market that today a manufacturer of a durable can look forward to. The other thing that I need to discuss over here, the fourth factor in fact, is today the comfort of the Indian with borrowing to spend to fund current and future consumption. Our parents and grandparents lived in a society where maybe borrowing was a taboo. Nobody was comfortable talking socially that he had borrowed money for whatever purposes. And even at that time when they borrowed, it was in a desperate state. And normally, see any old Hindi movie and you will be reminded that borrowing is done either for a child's future, to fund his education, to fund a daughter's wedding, etc. It was never for current consumption, unless it was for survival. Now leave that survival aside. Today, the Indian is very comfortable borrowing for current consumption. There is a heightened desire to lead a good life, and basically we have this concept of EMI, equalized monthly installments, that have legitimized borrowing. The concept of EMI has made me very comfortable with borrowing, because it tells me today that if I borrow, what is going to be my liability, the quantum and the length. And actually that is why this concept of EMI, the concept that I can get virtually anything financed and pay EMIs, from something as big as a home theater system to a car, to something as small, a mediocre thing as a digital camera or a camera. And believe me, today even products like sarees are being sold on EMIs. You can buy a saree today and pay for it in 12 monthly installments. So this is the kind of transition that has taken place. The word borrowing, unheard of because of the discomfort involved with, and a social taboo. Today there are a lot of families that are paying EMIs that are equal to about 60% of their salaries. A typical couple, there was a survey recently which interviewed some couples, and there were some couples that were paying out of their salary an EMI on the home that they were living in, an EMI on the 2 cars that they possessed, an EMI on the home theatre system that they had bought. So that's the kind of culture that we are gradually creeping into, the heightened desire to consume now, and as long as I can borrow and consume now, there's no problem. EMI, like this I said, has brought in a discipline, a certain kind of discipline and a predictability. It gives me, like I said, the quantum, and it also tells me the length. So there is a planning that I can do even in borrowing. So there is a sense in borrowing. It makes me more, they say, disciplined in my spending in future. And if I can spend in future and consume now, which means pay the EMIs in future and consume now, the today's Indian consumer sees no harm in it. Okay. The 5th trend that we see is that gradually the Indian consumer's fixation with anything foreign is to some extent stabilizing or even decreasing. There was a time when Indians believed, a lot of Indian consumers believed in the supremacy of all things that were foreign. But at this time, we were actually dumped with technologies that had become obsolete in their homelands. We were actually being passed on products that were well past their, best by date, best used by. They were past that date, they were in the Indian market, and because they were foreign made, the Indian consumer was buying them. Now, what has happened is that today, the Made in India label has got more credibility. Indians' faith in foreign companies has become a little static. It hasn't grown as it had been growing in the past. Over here we have a survey which said that the faith in domestic companies has grown. In 1996, only 34% of those surveyed expressed faith in Indian companies, but by 2006, 56% had shown their faith in Indian companies. This is also because now, again, this may be because of our exposure to media, our own experiences, and that now I have more access to a lot of information, whether it is by magazines in print or whether it is media, audiovisual, television, cable. But Indian consumer has realized gradually that all the foreign goods may not be perfectly made for him. They may not be perfectly suited to their tastes and needs. And that is why they have started looking for products that are at least made for in India or made for Indians. The top 20 companies named in a survey, 8 were Indian, including Tata, Bajaj and Godrej, and 5 were new foreign brands. By new I mean they did not feature in the parallel survey that was held earlier. If you have a look at this, the red pie of this circle is the domestic brands. The black ones are the established MNC brands, maybe like the HLL, etc., who have been a part of us, of our market, of our consumerism, while the green ones, the 5 green that you see over there, these are basically what we are talking of in terms of the new foreign brands. The new foreign brands also have made their way into the Indian psyche is because they have adapted themselves to the Indian customer. We spoke of adaptation when you reached maturity. Now I'm making a slight departure here. These are companies that have adapted a complete product to the Indian market. Nokia India's introduction of the 1100 model with those famous ad featuring the truck driver is not new to you and me. This was a mobile phone which had a built-in flash, and this built-in flash found its way into a mobile because the company found that it would be very useful for the Indian truck driver because given our state of roads. our roads are not very well lit, and these truck drivers that are driving on highways mainly at night, transporting and shipping goods across the country. The 1100 model, because of its feature, and now I come to the second part, because of its price, was a major hit amongst the target that it was meant for. Over here, let me also mention to you another kind of adaptation that some MNCs have done. Foreign companies. Sunsilk has a Shikakai version, shampoo. Shikakai is hardcore Indian. We've had Shikakai powders, Shikakai formulations for hair wash since times immemorial. Sunsilk introduced a Shikakai version for the hair. Sunsilk introduced a henna version. Now, mehendi being good for the hair is known to the Indians since a long time. And now if you can get it in a product which is a shampoo, it's going to be taken up by the Indian market. Okay. So basically, this trend that I'm talking of is the fact that Indian consumers are getting over their fixation with made in abroad. That foreign fixation is coming down. The foreign countries that are here with their products, the foreign companies, are Indianizing their products. And this Indianizing, like I mentioned to you, is not only adapting the foreign products made in their homelands, features to the Indian market, but also the prices. An example over here that I'd like to share with you is that of Lifebuoy. Lifebuoy is from HLL stable world over. Now in 2000, Lifebuoy in India went through a bad phase. 10% decline a month in sales for about a year and a half. You can imagine the impact, and Lifebuoy is a very, very popular product of HLL. Now what did HLL do? It decided to adapt or Indianize. It improved the quality of the product, keeping up with consumer awareness and need for, I mentioned to you about Margot. Margot did not change its color or packaging or perfume and fragrance. Lifebuoy improved the fragrance, added perfume, and then started stressing the health and hygiene factor for children. Correspondingly, increased its price also, because it wanted to move away from the image of a carbolic soap. That initial red bar of Lifebuoy, Tandarusti ki Raksha, that you remember as children, now that they increased the price, changed the packaging, changed the shape, made it more aesthetic, and its sales increased by 15% annually. Now this is a case that was studied in detail, and this was basically the success that was attributed to adaptation. They adapted to the changing Indian consumers' awareness, needs, tastes and preferences, and succeeded in spite of increasing the price, or like some people put it, they succeeded partially because the price had been increased, and they managed to move over that inertia that it was a low priced product and therefore maybe not a very, very high quality product. Okay. Then we come to the changing role of woman in the Indian society. There is no negating the fact that across all societies and cultures, the woman is increasingly taking up a parallel role in running a household. The woman's role is now not limited to running the kitchen, as we call it. The woman is moving out of the boundaries of the house, increasing role in the workforce at all levels. We've all now heard of the concept of the women breaking the glass ceiling. The highest paid woman in the world of being of Indian origin. So what we are saying is that in our country also, women are saying, and I can and I will, and they are emerging as partners in the family progress. Women are now, if not a deciding, at least an influencing factor in purchase decisions. It is not that it is limited only to groceries. So it is not that the woman decides only the brand of soap, shampoo, toothpaste, tea and coffee that comes into the house. the woman is playing an increasing role in deciding on the brand of the automobile that is going to be bought, the destination of travel that is going to be undertaken in the vacations next, and also to some extent investment decisions. So what we are saying over here is that the woman is now becoming a partner in all purchase decisions, and therefore companies should not neglect the woman as not merely a consumer who is going to ultimately consume the products, but as a consumer who has an influencing and a decisive role in the purchase. Now over here, let me share with you what you see on the slide right now. 83% in a survey undertaken, 83% of Indians approved of women's working outside their homes. This does seem a little too exaggerated, but this has been the finding of a survey, and 74% of those interviewed approved of women delaying their marriage to further their education and their career. Now what has happened, because the woman has undertaken a more aggressive role in running the household? There is more eating out. There are more fast food outlets. There are more phone call deliveries for food. Groceries, etc. are being given on call. So what we are talking of here is a change in what the market is offering, because the households are demanding this. 10 years ago, you did not see any ready-made garlic paste, onion paste, ginger paste on the grocery store shelves. Today, these are a common part of an Indian kitchen. Why? Because the woman thinks she can save effort and to be put in by using these. ITCs, kitchens of India, ready to make dal makhani, ready to just heat and serve paneer makhani, pulaus, etc. This is because the Indian household is accepting these things. 2 decades ago, ready-to-eat foods were rejected by the Indian market. But today, the Indian housewife and therefore the Indian household is accepting these ready-to-eat foods. Venkis, partially ready, cutlets, samosas, fries, spring rolls, etc. are there in now all the freezer compartments of a lot of grocery stores. Again, these are convenience items that the Indian household is demanding, and this has a major contribution of the Indian woman as a consumer. So basically, the Indian woman cannot be neglected anymore. And lastly, we come to another very important factor that we see in the Indian consumer today, which is the Indian consumer's comfort with technology. The infotech awareness and the infotech driven employment opportunities. I am talking of the mushrooming of call centers. All are BPO industry, KPO industry. Look at what they have offered to the average Indian. People taking up jobs and getting handsome salaries right from a very young age up to whatever age they offer. And this takes us back to our first point. The Indian consumer is getting more affluent even though he is working hard. The other part of comfort with technology makes me mention over here the other example, which is the e-Chaupal initiative of ITC. Comfort with technology has taken the computer right down to the farms and the farmers' houses and villages because of the ITC's e-Chaupal initiative. And because of this, the farmers are getting a better deal, the company is getting better raw materials, and in the end, the consumer is getting the best bargain. So, comfort with technology is something today that we are really proud of. The regular Indian consumer's comfort with the mobile phone, with the computer. And this brings me to another very interesting aspect, which we call the cyber grandma. A lot of households in India, the upper and the upper middle class, have sent their children out to study or have some members of the family that are out of the country on work. Now, the elders of this family need to communicate with them, and because technology offers them that convenience, they have actually become computer literate. They may not do anything else on the computer, but they know how to read their email and how to send their email. Some have gone a step further and they chat using MSN Messenger and the webcam. They are actually able to see their children and grandchildren in foreign lands who have gone out of their country to make things better for themselves, or they've gone out to study. So we have actually developed one section that we today call a cyber grandma or a cyber grandpa, all because the Indian consumer today is comfortable with technology, and that is one reason why even the products that we are being offered reflect this. You have washing machines with fuzzy logic and you have ACs with neuro logic and things like that. Basically, the Indian consumer appreciates this, is comfortable using it, is comfortable with single tap buttons, does not necessarily feel comfortable with that traditional rotating knob on a food mixer. So basically, we are talking of comfort with technology as the Indian consumer. So we have over here, therefore, the Indian consumer who is waiting to be served by relevant products and services, and we have the entire Indian consumer that can be encashed upon by all the MNCs, all prospective entrants into the Indian market. Vijay?
I got a question, madam. Just explain from the marketer's point of view, what is consumerism? What exactly is that?
See, consumerism is what I started with.
There are two parties involved in that.
Yes.
But what exactly is that concept?
See, consumerism is a stage where a consumer is not dependent on buying just what he is being served. I'm limited. What I have, I make a choice from that. Right. A consumerism is a consumer who is educated and aware. I'm not talking of literacy levels, but I'm just talking of awareness of a consumer knowing exactly what he wants and demanding what he wants. And because of that, he gets what he wants. You know, you see that we in India drafted out our Consumer Protection Act as late as 1986. I mean, we waited all these years from 1947 to 1986. It took us 4 decades. But that is because before that, the Indian consumer was a little helpless. He bought what he got. But now, he gets what he wants. So this is
basically because of awareness.
Awareness, not only of the offerings, but now, like we say, awareness of rights. I know my rights.
True.
I know where I stand. I know where I go to if I don't get what I want, if I don't get what I'm promised.
True.
So, that's a complete discussion that we can undertake some other time. But basically what we are talking of, is that we have changed. We know what we want. And this is partially because I've become more confident. I have a backing of the ability and willingness to pay. And that is why I have stepped beyond where I was.
So your technology, your disposable income, right? Your knowledge, your awareness, all this would really tend to change a person or a consumer. Maybe today's consumer may not be the same consumer tomorrow. He may be again a new improved consumer.
Yes. This is a constant evolution.
Constant evolution. It keeps on emerging.
Yes.
And I think it's very difficult for the marketeers to ascertain really who is a consumer and what are his needs and wants. Maybe today's need may not be tomorrow's need.
That is why, we have, in fact, so much stress today on constant consumer behavior research. You do marketing research, and a major part of marketing research, companies spend maybe, if not more, equal. I mean, there are pharmaceutical companies left aside where R&D expenditures a lot. But all consumer goods companies are spending so much on consumer research. consumer behavior research. They're changing perceptions, they're changing attitudes, usage, buying behavior.
The learnings.
They need to keep a tab on the pulse of the consumer. Otherwise, if they, find that change and then decide to change their marketing mix, the faster players will have overtaken them. So here it's not slow and steady wins the race.
Yeah, true. Now, what is your advice to marketeers? Okay, if there's a FMCG marketeer, now what's your advice to these marketeers in terms of Indian consumer?
Well, like I said in the last session, we've got this advice which says give the consumer
What?
all that he wants and at as less a price as he wants. But yes, there is going to be a limitation, because please remember that we have this very strong correlation in the consumer's psyche on quality and price. So that price has to remain at a floor. Anything below that, you feel that the good is becoming inferior.
These two characteristics are very important.
Yes.
They are very, very price sensitive, at the same time cost conscious.
Yes. So that's what I said, that we have for our manufacturers the new consumer who's waiting to be served with all relevant products and services, and as new as products and services that you can think.
So a consumer is a new consumer every day.
Yes, and that is why I probably mentioned earlier, product life cycles are becoming increasingly shorter.
True.
Product life cycle span on the x-axis today is much shorter than what it was 10 years ago, even for the same category.
Saying all this, I feel even the life cycle of an industry may become shorter.
That depends on the nature of the industry.
That is what nature of the industry, I guess.
No, if you look at something like our audience is aware of pagers.
True. Now
what happened? We can't even describe its life cycle.
Exactly.
So it is a matter. Now pagers as an industry vanished. But we have to, for this part, in where technology dependent industries are there, you cannot predict so easily. But when we are talking of consumables and FMCGs, then that modification and new varieties and new flavors, our regular potato wafers come out with a new flavor every few months. So
okay, I think it was a very good experience to hear to Dr. Preeti Rajpal, both in all the three sessions, right, beginning from the marketing mix, its 4 elements, that is product, price and promotion, and subsequently the Indian consumer. So all you marketeers, you have to be very careful. It's a very challenging task to ascertain who would be a consumer, what are his needs, wants, preferences, and accordingly you have to conceive a product and offer it to the marketplace so that you would sustain in the marketplace. So with these few words, I would end up my session and also thank Dr. Preeti Rajpal for coming all the way and handling the 3 sessions. Thank you very much.
thank you.